Morning, folks. It's Mike here from Trillium Hikes with another episode, and it is very early, well, early-ish even for me, on November 10th, 2024, and I'm in the car waiting for the windshield to defrost because it's minus, well, actually it's zero right now, 0 degrees Celsius. And a little bit of background for today's video. So my buddy Rob and I have known each other for, call it 15 years or so, and we worked together a couple of times now. Currently work together. And as I was hiking the Bruce Trail at various points, he said, "Oh, you're in my old neighborhood. It's where I used to grow up, like up in the Sydenham section, I believe it is." And we were going back and forth about hiking and trails and stuff like that. So many years later, he surprises me and says, "Hey, let's do a hike." And then he further surprises me and says, "Yeah, let's go do the Bruce Trail up in the Peninsula section." It's like, oh, fantastic. So needless to say, we did a 16-kilometer hike in the Peninsula section from halfway Log Dump up to the grotto, went inland a little bit to see Mar Lake and Horse Lake, back to the grotto, back down to the car. Unfortunately, I was in such a sorry state of affairs myself. I had not hiked or exercised or anything since I got back from Scotland, and I was a hurting unit, to say the least. But what was interesting for me, physically anyways, is I usually have problems with my calves locking, well, maybe not quite locking up, but getting really tight, really sore. But that didn't happen this time. Actually, my calves were quite fine until, obviously, a day or two later, and things started kicking in. But what was happening for me during the hike on the way back, the teardrop shaped muscle of the quad on both legs was spasming really bad, to the point where I could feel my whole leg shake, and it felt as though the entire quad was seizing on me while I was walking. So needless to say, I had to take a few breaks, and I felt really bad for Rob because he was waiting on me, but he was a good friend, and he didn't tease me all that much. He gave me some Gatorade, as the electrolytes that I had just were not up to snuff at all. But got back to the car and I was fine. It was just a mid-hike kind of thing. Anyways, despite that, Rob and his interest in hiking the Bruce Trail kind of came to a head, and all of a sudden he was starting to look at doing the entire trail. So today marks his start of hiking the Bruce Trail end to end. We are going to be meeting in a kind of like a meeting point for Highway 401 in Morriston, where we're just going to kind of pile into one car, drive all the way out to Niagara, and hike an undisclosed number of kilometers. We did have a number in mind, but until that actually happens, and we'll see how I do today, it's going to be interesting. We do have a number in mind that was more than what we did in the Peninsula section, but the terrain is very different. So the Peninsula section is very technical. It's a lot of up and downs, some climbing, whereas Queenston and that first, well, the entire Niagara Peninsula, really, there are some ravines, don't get me wrong, but there's nowhere near the amount of climbing and elevation changes that you will have in the Peninsula section. So we will see how far I go. Anyways, so I'm going to set you up on the dash of the car here so that you can get a little glimpse of our ride to Queenston, and very shortly we'll be on the Bruce Trail again. Stay tuned, folks. Like, subscribe, hit that bell. See you on the trail. And we are at the southern terminus. Haven't done this part of the trail since 2019. Mr. Rob, about to start his end-to-end. And garbage collection. Let's go.
Oh, and the most expensive parking lot outside of Toronto.
Yes, $5 an hour with no cap. Yay! And first marker, which Rob was able to and eagerly point out. And there's the Brock Monument in the background. Pause to read. Cool door. Sun's a little bright here. See if I can get this on camera. Upper Canada has dedicated this monument to the memory of the late Major General Sir Isaac Brock, KB, Provisional Lieutenant Governor and Commander of the forces in this province, whose remains are deposited in the vault beneath. Opposing the invading enemy, he fell in action near these heights on the 13th of October 1812 in the 43rd year of his age. Revered and lamented by the people whom he concerned, and deplored by the sovereign. To those service his life had been devoted. Guess he's interred here too. I'm not having fun, I'm just clearing the path. That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
I support this. Still clearing trail.
I lost my feet, but for good reason this time. Not due to a bog. And our first little mini crevice. More to come. So now that I actually have an action camera and we're kind of revisiting the early parts of the Bruce Trail, one thing that I can show you guys is more of the trail and more of the scenic sites, for lack of a better term. So the way just walked and we come across this guy, which if you've researched the Bruce Trail, you'll probably have come across at some point. But if I remember correctly, this was a communications dish. Okay. That or some kind of a crane to get stuff up from down below the escarpment. Way down there. And mini trail. Looks like part of, oh no, that was just a fenced in area. But was this just rock formation or, yeah. I thought it was foundation of something, but perhaps not. Well, I got some piece of metal there. I thought I had seen like the remnants of a foundation, but like you got some squared off pieces of rock there, but
so cool.
Back to the trail. Very, very cool. Yeah, I will put in some details into the video description once I verify what that was, but I do believe that was a dish of some kind. Onward! A little bit of an update. Get to see a little bit more of the escarpment. A little bit of a rock face. And trail yet to go. And Lake Ontario way out in the background. One of my absolute favorite spots from memory from when I did the Bruce Trail in 2019 is this area right here. Hey, you alright? Yeah. So my first hike on the Bruce Trail in 2019 was right after some torrential rains that we had in the province. It was so bad that the city of Toronto actually called in the reserves to help with flood management, and they had to pack a whole whack of sandbags for Toronto Island and some of the shoreline. And I started my hike right after that. So needless to say, it was very, very, very muddy. But the day that I had started, it was overcast, it was misty, a little eerie, you know, walking through the forest. And then you would come across this on that kind of eerie feeling. And it was just spectacular. And I
I don't know, maybe the better part of an hour here, just checking things out. So I'm gonna take some photos, and I think I'm may or may not go down this path, but we'll see. But so cool. Great place to have a fire, as you can see there, right in front of Rob. Yeah, all right, picture time.